Guys, I have a confession to make. I sold my Herman Miller and it was a super easy thing to do, and I wasn't even looking for another chair. I wasn't in the market for one, but it came and found me. I was at DreamHack Dallas and doing some work for Intel, and I saw a familiar face at the Anthros booth. Ron Rambo Kim, who makes amazing videos, although he hasn't done one for a long time, but we've been colleagues at AIM Labs, and he's an old Counter-Strike guy, so he came over to me and said, "Hey Dan, sit in one of these." And I was like, okay. And I sat in it and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm going to run you through my experience, but this chair actually blows every Herman Miller that they've ever used out of the water when it comes to health, like good sitting, comfortable sitting. It just blows them all out the water. And so we're going to go through those points in this video and my personal experience having now used it for a few months. And I will say right at the top of the video too, Anthros did send me this chair. However, they're not paying me to make the video. They're not asking me to say anything. It's just my thoughts, my honest opinions after using the chair for a few months. So the first thing that you're going to notice is the separation of the upper back and the lower back piece. However, unlike with most chairs that will market this as a lower back support or a lumbar support, this is neither of those things. It technically is, but it's actually the pelvis support. And why is that important? Well, the reason right off the top here is that the pelvic tilt is responsible ultimately for how your alignment, your spinal alignment actually follows. So for example, if your pelvic tilt is like posteriorly tilted, and so you're leaning forward like this, you're going to like slouch, you know, your butt's going to follow the pelvis, your spine is also going to follow the pelvis, and you're going to get the C curve. And that's going to expose the discs in your back. And if any of you have ever learned how to lift big weights, like doing deadlifting, squats, it's always going to be about the back position and understanding how to maintain or cue the muscles to make sure that you can have a good pelvic tilt that is going to encourage a neutral back so that you're not exposing the discs and having them bear the brunt of the load of that weight and then get damaged. That's not what you want. You want to have the correct spinal position. And to do that, it all ultimately comes back to the pelvic tilt and being able to brace in that position and maintain it when you're lifting lots of weight. Now, the problem is that when we're sitting for long periods of time, we don't have all of this weight. We're in a kind of passive, we're just in a chilled out state, and we're just hanging out, doing whatever we're doing on the PC, and we're not thinking about our posture. But we are sitting for extremely long periods of time, repeatedly. So you are going to accrue damage and degeneration more quickly if you're consistently in bad postures and positions, and that's just kind of how it goes. And so one of the things that the Anthros does so well with this pelvis support is that it actually helps you at the foundation of your posture, essentially, to lock in a good posture without even thinking about it. And I know if any of you have had the same experience as me, you'll think this is amazing, because I have a struggle in a lot of chairs, even though I'm so super health conscious, in terms of maintaining a posture. It feels like a lot of work, and it feels like I have to kind of really condition myself. And I invariably will be in a spot after an hour at least where I start to forget and I start to, just drift into a bad posture. And I lean forward too much. I start to slouch a bit. I slide forwards in the chair. And then if I'm sliding forwards in the chair, then it becomes kind of like really hard to have a correct pelvic tilt. And so then I'm in, all kinds of problems. And the thing is that most chairs, what they'll do is they'll have a lot of pressure just placed on your lower back to try to correct your lumbar position. But again, that's way less effective to have loads of pressure just pressed into your spine compared to having the pressure on your pelvis and supporting your pelvis position, which then automatically creates good spinal alignment. So ultimately, that is by far the best approach to ensure good posture, is to make sure that the pelvis can do what it needs to do to maintain that posture. So that's what they're trying to achieve with this, and it works really, really well, and it's just effortless. Now, there is another aspect to what they have done with this chair that also helps with that. So there's two proprietary technologies that they took across from their time making wheelchairs. So the founder of the company, he is a person that spent many, many, many years designing and engineering solutions for people specifically that were in wheelchairs, who are obviously the most intense sitters that we have on the planet in terms of any demographic of person that uses the chair a lot. Those people need the healthiest chair possible because they are doing by far the most sitting. And so that's where a lot of this proprietary technology comes from, is bringing across all of the learnings from dealing with that demographic and then trying to then bring it into a wider audience of anyone that's really sitting at a desk for any long period of time. And so what they've done is they've got the CloudTex technology, which is the material that rests on top of the cushion, where they're actually able to move independently of the cushion, the CloudTex material that is on top of it. And so what this does is it helps to reduce friction. It's like anti-shearing, And so not only will it move with you as you're moving in the chair, which is way more comfortable, that's also another mechanism to decrease the pressure with which that your body's experiencing as you sit on the chair. So it just makes it more comfortable. In addition to that, they've got this, again, I'm not a materials expert, so I really can't go too deep on that, but I can tell you about the results, and they've done a really good job with the cushioning itself too. And they've done independent testing also of the pressure. And so I'm going to show that pressure index here on the screen as well. So you can see that the pressure is like significantly different to a lot of the competitors. And this really blew me away because I'm like, I never had heard of this chair until very recently. I'm like, how are they outperforming all of these other competitors? And I actually saw this before sitting in it. And then I sat in it and I was like, oh, because when I sat in it, I had this feeling of relief. Like my legs were actually relaxing as I was sat in the chair. I could feel tension actively going out of my legs. And it was like a really weird feeling. Sadly, I'm really used to the chair now, so I don't have that feeling anymore. But I was sitting in the Embody previously. And as you can see, the Embody has a 168 I was on the gaming Embody, so it had a 138 score on this peak pressure index. And the Anthros had the 88.5 score. So that's a half, essentially, almost. A little under half difference in pressure. So no wonder my body started to just relieve tension. That is something that's pretty incredible. And there's one extra thing they did with the cushion that's really, really smart. So what they did was they have little cutouts towards the back of this CloudFloat cushion. And what it does is it allows you to even better get into that proper pelvic tilt, because again, as I mentioned, a lot of people will have this issue where, as I have had with the Embodies, where you just like slide forward in the chair. I've even heard Shroud talk about this on his stream, that he has this issue with a lot of chairs where your butt just slides forwards and you're getting into a bad pelvic tilt. And that doesn't really happen on this chair because of both the pelvis support as well as at the back you have these little cutouts, which allows your butt to kind of your butt bones to rest into the cushion and be a lot more kind of solid in that ideal position. So they've really nailed it with regards to that. So when talking about all of the health stuff here, I'm going to talk about like a couple, health outcomes that I've personally experienced from this chair. One for myself and one for my wife as well. For me, it's the quadratus lumborum, which you may not have heard before. I didn't know about this until I went to a massage therapist, and I was essentially in there because I had all this like tightness and soreness around my hips in this like 360 degrees fashion. And I'm like, I'm really active. I don't understand, why I'm having this problem. I got a pretty strong core. What's going on? And so they were like, yeah, your QL is like insanely tight. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that's when I learned about the quadratus lumborum. And then I figured out that it was because of my sitting. And so long story short, a couple months after using the Anthros chair, the soreness that I get there is significantly reduced. I still have some there, but it's way better than it was. And previously, the only relief that I could get was in doing like 90 minutes of deep tissue work on the QL. So that's already a benefit that I have had from this chair. And I know with my wife as well, she has neuropathy always with like sitting, because she had a L5S1 surgery because she had herniated a disc many years ago now. And for her, this is the first chair that she's been able to sit in where she doesn't experience neuropathy, which is like massive. And I've seen a lot of other testimonies for people that have various forms of back injuries or issues with pain or sciatica, whatever it might be that's related to the back. And this chair has given them a lot of comfort or relief entirely in certain cases, depending on what's wrong with that person. So in terms of health, this is definitely a chair that does a lot well. And in terms of just some of the other things that are really nice, the upper back is something that's really flexible. It moves around a lot. And I'm someone that has like really broad shoulders. So typically for me, I can find that quite restrictive. And something that you need to bear in mind is that when you're sitting in a chair, you need to be able to move a lot, because movement is lubrication for your joints. And that's going to allow you to be healthier. The less you move, the worse things will get over time. So we need to encourage movement, especially given all the sitting that we're doing. So having an upper back piece that's really flexible and moves a lot with you and is not in any way obstructive is fantastic. And that's what they've managed to do here. They've also got some like really cool recline functionality on this chair as well. So when it comes to this chair, like one of the things about a good recline is that if we're thinking about our everyday use case for a chair like this, we want to have some form of recline in our neutral position that we're just like kind of doing stuff from. And the reason is because if you're completely upright, if you think about the way that the pressure from gravity is bearing down on your body, it's going to be very different to if you're able to have the extra surface area applied more evenly across the chair in terms of pressure that is ultimately just going to decrease the pressure overall that your body is experiencing. And so having just even a slight recline creates that. So if you have good posture maintained with a slight recline, as I experienced in this chair, then you're in like a really, really good spot. And so then what do we need to have out of the chair? You need to have a great way to control the degree of the recline in a very precise way. And that's exactly what they've done, because they have a tension dial here that allows you to decrease or increase the tension. And so I can like increase the tension a lot, or I can decrease the tension a lot. And I'll just like fly backwards if I obviously decrease it fully. And so you can kind of find like the perfect level for you. And why that's important is because we all have different like weights and leverages and so on, because we're all different human, sizes and shapes and all the rest of it. And so you need to have a very fine amount of control so that you can find that perfect spot where you just have like a slight lean back and you get that little bit of recline. Your feet are flat on the ground and you're in a really good spot. So they've done that really effectively in this chair. And additionally, I think that's, by the way, the most important like feature in terms of all of the recline. But they also have another cool feature on this chair where if you are trying to like lock the chair, you can lock it into any position that's reclined that you like. So for example, if I lean back a lot more and I try to lock it here, so now the chair will just stay precisely as I locked it. And if I want to obviously release that, then I can kind of release that, and then I'm kind of back to being able to recline kind of any which way that I like. So that's another cool feature, that you can kind of lock it into the perfect spot if you really want to. And that's also, I think, helpful for people that, if they find a difficulty on what I mentioned previously, where you find that perfect tension to just like really hit that balance. That's another way to achieve the same end. So the recline, I think, is in a really good spot. There is one thing that I was notified of when I was going to be using this chair by the Anthros team, which was, hey, you're going to probably experience some discomfort for a couple of weeks. And that's exactly what happened. And I was like, okay, I'm glad that they told me this, because I was like, okay, this is not feeling great. Like, why am I feeling discomfort? And they had explained that there's a learning curve. The learning curve is not for me. It's actually really easy to figure out how to customize the chair. But the learning curve is actually for your body, because your body needs to get used to sitting in this way, because it's very different than any other chair that you would have previously used, which I mean, I found it was exactly as they said, 2-3 weeks of discomfort, and then I got used to it, and then it felt great. So, and it already felt, it just wasn't that much discomfort, but it was something that was noticeable after a few hours of sitting on it every day. So, with that said, that was really the only gripe and pain that I've had with it. And it seems like that is, part of the use of a chair like this, and it's overall for the good. And in terms of, the gaming experiences that I've had, because obviously that's something that I do, and it's something that everybody that probably watches my channel is doing. Gaming with it's been really great, because again, it's super easy to get into the position that you want to get into, that you need to get into for playing, because you have all of this fine control and customization on, getting that recline that you need and so on. And it's really easy also at the same time, that because of the way that the cushion has those cutouts, even if you have a bit of a recline, you're not going to slide forwards. Because if I lean back, my butt almost wants to slide forwards, right? So that's something that is, they have helped to prevent that with the design of the chair. So you can get like a really good position. And for me, I found that it wasn't very difficult to maintain that position. I didn't even have to think about it. And I would be able to, maintain a good spot without really having any issues, which for me, mostly with any other chair that I've used, I'm going to lean forwards. I'm going to have issues with my posture crumpling after a certain point. And that just seems like it's always been an issue for me. And I've always put it down to just like having to be more disciplined in how I approach my sitting, and having to like constantly remind myself and constantly train myself to have good posture. But that's not really been an issue at all in this chair, which has been a really welcome thing. So something else that you get with this chair as well is a lot of customization. I mean, if you're paying, $1,800 or whatever it is for a chair, for a premium chair, being able to customize it so it looks sick with your setup is also really important. And that's something that they've got, down really, really well on the website. You can find a bunch of different ways to customize it, and you can even use a different seat material. You can go for that leather instead if you want to. I am not using the leather. I'm using the other option. But I think, having tried the leather as well, it's also really nice. And so I don't think you can really go too wrong. So I think, picking anything that kind of fits the best with your setup, I think is going to be a great choice. And one extra detail that they've added in terms of the aesthetic is they've got these removable back panels. And the removable back panels are really, really cool, because if you're an esports fan and you want to go to one of your favorite events, you can get a pro player to sign it. It's like very lightweight, very easy to travel with, this back panel. You can go back home, slap it back onto the back of your chair, and now you've got your favorite pro signature on the back of your desk chair, which is awesome. So I don't think anyone else has come up with that idea, but Anthros have. So, you know, shout outs to them for that, because that's really, really incredible. So I think with all that said, you know, this is essentially my full review of the Anthros. It's been a great experience. For me, it's my go-to chair. I don't think I can think of a chair that comes close to the features I've described. And this is the reason why my mind was blown. It was so easy when I first was sitting in this chair, because my body was experiencing relief. And so immediately I'm like, okay, they've done some things right. What is it? I've got to figure it out. And this video has been me explaining precisely what that is. And again, if you're someone that has low back pain and low back issues, definitely find a way to try this chair out if you can, so that you can kind of get a sense as to whether it's going to help you with your issues. I think it's very likely it will. And if you have any doubt, you can visit their website and kind of get more information about that and other people that have specific types of back issues, maybe something similar to yours, and you'll be able to hear from them firsthand what their experience has been for that issue with the chair. And similarly, if the price point is too much for you guys, then they actually recommend other brands that fit in different price points, that they can say these companies offer a really good sit that's healthy at these different price points, because their mission is ultimately to make sure that everyone's just sitting in a more healthy way. And they are a small company, and compared to like the giant of, you know, a giant like Herman Miller. And so, you know, they really are highly mission driven in that respect. And you can really see it by just, you know, going on the website and kind of looking at the materials that they have there. And lastly, one thing I'll say is if you are making it to the end of this review and you're looking to purchase this chair, they've given a discount code to my audience. And so, you know, you can go and get in that link in the description and you'll be able to get a discount. And if that's something that you end up doing, I'd love to hear what your experience is like as well. And they also have the 12-year warranty. That is, I think, quite common and competitive, a competitive offering with a premium product like this. And I think given how much we sit, I think it's absolutely worth it. If you divide per year that amount of money, you know, that I think it kind of comes out kind of worth it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this review, and maybe you learned something about sitting, which was also really cool. You know, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next.